Admiral Kong Daeho stood before the massive view screen in the Federation War Council chambers. His hands were steady, but his mind raced as he watched the incoming transmission. The screen flickered with static before clearing to show something that made even the bravest military leaders step back in fear. The Void Collective had arrived. 50,000 ships moved through space like a dark cloud. Each vessel was the size of a small moon, their black hulls seeming to eat the light from nearby stars. They moved in perfect formation, silent and deadly. No one had ever seen so many ships in one place. The largest Federation fleet had only 12,000 vessels, and that was considered massive. How long until they reached the outer colonies? Asked General Yoon from the Altarian Empire. His golden uniform, usually bright and proud, looked dull under the emergency lighting. 6 days, replied Captain Torres from the data center. Maybe 5, if they increase speed. Kong Daeho closed his eyes for a moment. 6 days to prepare for the end of everything they knew. The Federation had fought many wars, but nothing like this. The Void Collective was not just another enemy. They were machines that had learned to think, to hate, and to consume entire star systems. The main transmission screen activated again. This time it showed the Herald of the Void Collective. The being was not flesh or metal, but something in between. It spoke with a voice like grinding gears and breaking glass. People of the Federation, it said, you have one choice. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Fight us, and we will make your suffering last for centuries. You have 12 hours to decide. The transmission ended. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the life support systems. Everyone looked at each other, searching for hope in faces. That showed only fear. We need every ship, said Admiral Kim from the Kepler Defense Force. Every planet, every colony, must send their fleets. This is not about territory anymore. This is about survival. Kong Daeho nodded. Send the emergency. Call to all member worlds. Tell them we need everything they have. No exceptions. As the messages went out across the galaxy, Kong Daeho thought about Earth. The humans were the newest members of the Federation. They had joined only 50 years ago, and many species still did not trust them completely. Humans were strange. They smiled too much, asked too many questions, and seemed to enjoy dangerous situations that would terrify other species. But they had ships. Not many, but their technology was different from anything else in the galaxy. Human weapons worked in ways that Federation scientists could not fully understand. More importantly, humans had something that other species respected and never gave up. On Luna Station, orbiting Earth's moon, Captain Lee Minho received the emergency transmission at 0300 hours. He was in his quarters reading reports from the outer patrol ships. The message made him put down his datapad and walk to the observation window outside. He could see Earth hanging in space like a blue and white jewel. It looked so peaceful, so safe. It was hard to believe that in less than a week everything might be gone, Captain, came a voice from his comm system. Director Park Sun-ho wants to see you immediately. On my way. Lee Min-ho replied. The walk to the director's office took 10 minutes through the station's main corridors. Luna Station was huge, home to over 2 million people. It served as Earth's main military headquarters and the center for human space operations. The corridors were busy even at this early hour, the officers and technicians moving quickly between duty stations. Director Park Soon was waiting in his office with several other senior officials. The room had a large window that looked out toward the construction yards where Earth ships were built and repaired. Park Sun-ho was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was still strong. Min-ho, he said, using the captain's first name, as he often did. I assume you have seen the transmission from the Federation. Yes, sir. 5,000 Void Collective ships. They want us to send everything we have. Everything we have, repeated Park Sun-ho slowly. Do you know what that means to them? Lee Min-ho thought for a moment. They expect us to send our entire fleet. All 47 ships. Correct. They want every destroyer, every cruiser, every patrol boat. They want us to empty our defenses and join their massive fleet at the nexus point. Yes, and we are not going. To do that? Park Sun-ho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. No, Captain, we are not. He turned to look out the window toward the construction yards. There, floating in its maintenance dock, was Earth's newest and largest warship. The Indomitable was 2 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide. It was easily the biggest ship humanity had ever built. Even from this distance, it looked powerful and dangerous. We are going to send one ship, Park Sun-ho said quietly. Lee Min-ho felt his heart skip a beat. Sir, with respect, one ship against 50,000 seems... What, Captain? Impossible. Park Sun-ho walked over to his desk and picked up a sealed folder. He handed it to Lee Min-ho. Read this. Then tell me what you think. Lee Min-ho opened the folder and began reading. The first page made his eyes widen. The second page made him sit down. By the third page, he understood why Director Park Sun-ho was so calm. How long have we been working on this? He asked. Since the day we joined the Federation, Park Sun-ho replied. We knew this day would come. Maybe not the Void Collective specifically, but something like them. Something that would threaten everything. Than the other species. They do not know. They know we have new technology. They do not know what it can do. They think our weapons are just slightly better versions of their own. They are wrong. Lee Min-ho closed the folder and looked at his director. When do we leave? Tomorrow. The Federation fleets are already moving toward the nexus point. They will expect us to join them with our entire fleet. Instead, they will see one ship. They will think we are crazy. Let them think that, Park Sun-ho said. Fear and confusion can be useful weapons. As Lee Min-ho prepared to leave, Park Sun-ho called him back. Captain, there is one more thing you need to understand. When you take the Indomitable into battle, you will not be fighting to win a war. You will be fighting to end the possibility of this war ever happening again. I understand, sir. I hope you do, Min-ho. I truly hope you do. Next morning, as the sun rose over Earth, the Indomitable began its journey toward the Nexus Point, alone. The Nexus Point was a region of space where 7 different star systems met. It had no planets, no stations, just empty space marked by ancient navigation beacons. Now it was filled with the largest gathering of warships in galactic history. Fleet. After Fleet arrived at the meeting point, the Altarian Empire brought their famous Golden Fleet, 3,000 ships that gleamed like small suns. Their hulls were made from a metal that could reflect almost any weapon back at the enemy. The ships moved in perfect formations that had taken centuries to master. The Kepler Defense Force arrived next with their reality-bending siege craft. These ships were smaller but more advanced than anything else in the galaxy. They could bend space around themselves, making it impossible for enemies to target them properly. Their weapons could tear holes in the fabric of space itself. From the Centauri Republic came the Heavy Brigade. Massive ships built like flying fortresses. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a small planet. They moved slowly, but nothing could stop them once they started moving. More fleets kept arriving. The Crystal Warriors from Sigma Draconis brought ships that looked like living things made of glass and light. The Iron Lords from the Outer Rim brought vessels that looked like giant hammers, ready to crush anything in their path. Commander Yoon-gi stood on the bridge of the Altarian flagship. The Golden Dawn. She was young for a commander, only 43 years old, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. She watched the tactical display as more and more ships appeared on the screen. Status report, she called to her navigation officer. 15,200 ships now present, Commander. Still waiting for the human fleet. Yoon-gi nodded. She had fought alongside human ships before and found them to be brave but reckless. Humans had a habit of charging into battle before thinking about the consequences. But they were fierce fighters, and their weapons were surprisingly effective. Any word from Earth? She asked. They sent a message saying their fleet would arrive soon. 2 hours later, a single ship appeared at the edge of the sensor range. It was huge, easily twice the size of most flagships, but it was alone, tactical. Officer checked his instruments 3 times before reporting. Commander, I am reading 1 human vessel. Designation Indomitable. Length 2,000 meters. No other ships detected. Yoon Gi-won stared at the screen. 1 ship. Are you certain? Yes, Commander. Just 1. Open a channel to the human vessel immediately. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the human ship. A man in a dark blue uniform appeared. He looked calm, almost relaxed. This was Captain Lee Min-ho. Commander Yoon, he said with a slight bow. Good to see you again. Captain Lee, where's the rest of your fleet? We're expecting at least 40 ships from Earth. Earth has sent exactly what is needed, Commander. It's no more, no less. Yoon Guan felt her temper rising. Captain, we are facing 50,000 enemy vessels. This is not the time for games. Where are your other ships? There are no other ships, Commander. The Indomitable is Earth's contribution to this battle. 1 ship against 50,000? Have you lost your minds? Lee Min-ho smiled slightly. Commander, I understand your concern. But Earth has complete confidence in our contribution. Before Yoon Guan could respond, another transmission came in. It was Admiral Kong Dae-ho from the Federation War Council. All ships. This is Admiral Kong. We have received word that the Void Collective will arrive in 18 hours. I want all fleet commanders to report their status immediately. 1 by 1, the commanders reported in. The Altarians had 3,000 ships ready. The Kepler forces had 800 of their advance vessels. The Centauri Republic reported 2,000 heavy ships. Every major power in the Federation had sent their best. When it came time for the human report, all eyes turned to Captain Lee Min-ho. Earth reports 1 vessel ready for combat, he said simply. The communication channel exploded with angry voices. The Altarian admiral called it an insult. The Kepler commander suggested that humans were cowards. Even Admiral Kong seemed shocked by the report. Captain Lee Kong said, his voice tight with control. Please explain Earth's decision, Admiral. Earth has evaluated the threat and determined that the Indomitable is sufficient to handle the situation. Sufficient? Shouted the Centauri fleet commander. 1 ship is sufficient against 50,000? Yes. Lee Min-ho replied calmly. The argument continued for 20 minutes. Some commanders accused humans of planning to betray the Federation. Others suggested that Earth was keeping its real fleet hidden, planning to swoop in after the other fleets had been destroyed. Captain Lee Min-ho listened to all the accusations without changing expression. When the shouting finally stopped, he spoke again. I understand your concerns. I also understand that our response may seem inadequate. However, I ask that you trust us. Earth has never failed an ally, and we will not start now. Trust you, said the Crystal Warrior Admiral. You send 1 ship and ask us to trust you? Yes. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Indomitable, the human crew went about their duties with unusual calm. Chief Engineer Kim Soo-young ran diagnostics on systems that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Her instrument showed readings that would have confused the best Federation scientists. Engine status, called Lee Min-ho. All systems operating at optimal levels, Captain. The causality drive is ready for activation. Weapon status? Chief Tactical. Officer Nam Hai-sung checked his displays. All weapon systems are green, Captain. Entropy charges are loaded and ready. Dimensional cannons are online. Excellent. What about our special systems? Dr. Han Yemin, the ship's chief science officer, looked up from his station. The probability engine is functioning perfectly, Captain. We can begin reality adjustment. At any time, these conversations were broadcast on open channels that the Federation ships could monitor. The other commanders heard the words but could not understand what they meant. Causality drive? Entropy charges? Dimensional cannons? None of these technologies existed in Federation databases. Commander Yoon Ji-won contacted Captain Lee Min-ho privately. Min-ho, I have known you for 5 years. You are not a fool, and you are not a coward, but I am looking at impossible odds. How can 1 ship, even a large one, stand against 50,000? Lee Min-ho was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, the voice was serious. Guan, I cannot tell you everything. But I can tell you this. When the battle begins, I want all Federation ships to stay at least 10,000 kilometers away from the Indomitable. Why? For your own safety. Our safety. We are talking about your safety. You're the one who will be outnumbered 50,000 to 1. Guan, please, just trust me. Keep your ships away from mine when the fighting starts. The transmission ended, leaving Commander Yoon Gyeowan staring at the screen. She had more questions than ever, and time was running out. The Void Collective arrived like a nightmare made real. Their ships came out of hyperspace in perfect silence. No engine noise, no communication signals, nothing but the cold presence of 50,000 vessels that seemed to eat the light around them. Each ship was a geometric horror, all sharp angles and impossible curves that hurt to look at directly. Commander Yoon Ji-won watched from the bridge of the Golden Dawn. Her sensors tried to make sense of what they were seeing. The readings made no sense. The enemy ships registered as being there and not there at the same time. Some appeared to be inside out. Others seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously. Analysis report, she called to her science officer. Commander, I cannot get stable readings. Ships appear to be constructed from materials that do not exist in normal space. Some of them are showing negative mass readings. Negative mass? That is impossible. Yes, Commander. Should be impossible. Across the Federation fleet, similar reports came in. The Kepler ships, with their advanced sensors, were getting readings that their computers refused to process. The Centauri heavy ships reported that their targeting systems could not lock onto. The enemy vessels, only one ship seemed unaffected by the strange readings. The human vessel Indomitable sat calmly in space, its sensors apparently working perfectly. Captain Lee Min-ho watched the enemy fleet with the same calm expression he had worn since arriving.
Captain said his tactical officer Nam Hai-sung
Am reading 53,412 enemy vessels. All ships are combat ready. Thank you, Nam. Any unusual readings? Nothing we have not seen before, sir? Standard Void Collective technology? Khan Yemen looked up from his science station. Captain, they are using reality distortion fields. To confuse enemy sensors, it is an old trick. How old? Asked Lee Min-ho. We first encountered it about 30 years ago during the Kepler incident. Chief Engineer Kim Soo-yang checked her displays. All systems are ready, Captain. We can begin operations at any time. These calm conversations were broadcast on open channels. The Federation commanders who heard them were confused and worried. How could the humans act so relaxed when facing impossible odds? What was this Kepler incident they mentioned? No such event existed in Federation records. The enemy fleet finished its arrival and formed into attack positions. Then space itself seemed to crack as a transmission came from the Void Collective Herald. The being appeared on every screen in the Federation fleet simultaneously. It was horrible to look at. Part machine, part something else entirely. It spoke with a voice like breaking metal and screaming wind. Pathetic creatures of flesh and steel, it said. You gather here like insects before the storm. We are the Void Collective. We have consumed 12 star systems. We have destroyed 100 civilizations. You will be the next. The herald paused and seemed to focus on something. But what is this? A single ship dares to challenge our might. The small humans send one vessel against our Armada. This insults us more than all your other fleets combined. Admiral Kong De-ho tried to respond, but the herald cut him off. No words, meat creature. You had your chance to surrender. Now, you will learn what it means to face the void. The transmission ended. For a moment, space was silent, except for the background hum of 50,000 ships. Then the attack began. The Void Collective did not use normal weapons. Their ships fired beams of pure darkness that seemed to eat holes in reality itself. Where the beams hit Federation ships, the vessels simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but gone as if they had never been built. The Federation fleet tried to fight back. The Altarian Golden Fleet fired their light cannons, weapons that could burn through any normal armor. The beams struck the enemy ships and simply vanished, absorbed into the dark holes without effect. The Kepler ships tried their reality-bending weapons, attempting to twist space around the enemy vessels. The weapons activated properly, but had no effect. The Void ships continued their advance as if nothing had happened. The Centauri heavy ships launched their planet-killer missiles, each one carrying enough explosive power to crack a moon. Missiles flew toward their targets and disappeared the moment they touched the enemy hulls, absorbed without even an explosion. "This is impossible," Commander Yoon, Guan said as she watched her weapons fail. "Nothing can absorb that much energy." Tactical Officer was pale with fear. "Commander, we are losing ships. The enemy weapons are cutting through our shields like they are not even there." It was true. Federation ships were disappearing at an alarming rate. The pride of the Altarian Empire, the advanced technology of Kepler Prime, the massive firepower of the Centauri Republic, none of it mattered. The Void Collective weapons simply erased whatever they touched. Admiral Kong. Daeho watched his carefully planned defense fall apart in minutes. All ships fall back to secondary positions. Repeat, all ships fall back. The Federation fleet began to retreat, but the enemy followed. The Void ships moved without any visible propulsion, gliding through space like predators chasing wounded. "Pray, Admiral," came a calm voice over the communication channel. It was Captain Lee Minho. "I recommend that all Federation ships withdraw to a safe distance." "Captain Lee, we cannot abandon you to face this alone." "You're not abandoning me, Admiral. You are following my tactical recommendation. Please move all ships to at least 10,000 kilometers distance." "Captain, that will leave you completely alone against their entire fleet." "Yes," Lee Minho said simply. "That is the plan." Commander Yoon Gi watched in horror as the lone human ship began moving forward. Instead of retreating like every other vessel, the Indomitable was advancing directly toward the heart of the enemy formation. "He has lost his mind," she said. "One ship cannot fight 50,000. But even as she spoke, something strange began to happen. The human ship started to change. Its hull, which had looked like normal metal, began to shimmer. Readings from the vessel became impossible to understand, just like the enemy ships. "Commander," her science officer called out, "the human ship is emitting energy signatures I have never seen before."
What kind of signatures?
"I do not know. Our computers cannot process the data. It is as if the ship is using technology that should not exist." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Lee Minho stood calmly as his ship moved into the center of the enemy formation. Around him, his crew worked with the practiced efficiency of people who had trained for this moment their entire lives. "Nam, activate the first phase protocols." "Yes, Captain." "Beginning phase 1 of Total War Protocol." Kim, bring the special systems online." "All special systems are now active, Captain." "We are ready to begin." The enemy ship surrounded the lone human vessel, like a pack of wolves surrounding a single deer. The Void Collective Herald appeared on the screen again, its mechanical features twisted with something like amusement. "It's foolish humans. You have sealed your fate. Your ship will be the first to feed our hunger." Captain Lee Minho looked at the horrible creature on his screen and smiled. "No," he said quietly. "You have sealed yours?" Captain Lee Minho pressed a single button on his command chair. The bridge of the Indomitable began to change. Panels slid away to reveal new control stations. The walls themselves seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Peaceful exploration. Vessel was transforming into something else entirely. "All crew to battle stations," Lee Minho announced. "Begin Total War Protocol Phase 2. Chief Tactical Officer Nam Haesung moved to a new weapons console that had emerged from the floor. Controls were unlike anything in the Federation fleet. Instead of simple targeting computers, there were displays showing mathematical equations that seemed to change reality itself. "Dimensional weapons are online, Captain," Nam reported. "Reality anchors are deployed. Causality locks are engaged, Chief." Engineer Kim Soo-young activated systems that had never been used in combat before. Her engineering station now showed power levels that should have been impossible. The ship's reactor was not just producing energy, it was borrowing power from Other dimensions? Captain, we are drawing energy from 17 parallel universes. Power levels are at maximum. Dr. Han Yemen worked at his science station, but his instruments were not measuring normal space. They were analyzing the enemy ships on levels that went beyond simple matter and energy. Captain, I have completed the analysis. The Void Collective. Ships are using technology we encountered during the Kepler incident 30 years ago. They are the same enemy, just grown larger. Commander Yun Guan watched from 10,000 kilometers away as the human ship began to glow with an inner light. Her sensors were receiving data that made no sense. The Indomitable was showing energy readings higher than some stars. What are they doing? She asked her science officer. I do not know, Commander. The energy signatures are beyond our understanding. It is as if they are preparing to tear a hole in space itself. The Void Collective ships surrounded the lone human vessel and prepared to attack. Their dark weapons charged up, ready to erase the Indomitable from existence. The Herald laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Prepare to become nothing, humans. Captain Lee Minho looked at his tactical display. 50,000 enemy ships surrounded his vessel in a perfect sphere. Each ship was ready to fire weapons that could destroy planets. It was exactly where he wanted them. Activate the probability. Cannon? Yes, Captain. Probability cannon is charging. The Federation observers watched in amazement as a new weapon emerged from the human ship. It looked like a cannon, but it seemed to exist in several places at once. Reality bent around it like light bending around a black hole. Fire when ready, Captain Lee Minho ordered. The weapon fired, but not in any way that normal weapons worked. Instead of a beam or a missile, it fired pure mathematics. The equations struck the nearest Void Collective ship, and something impossible happened. The enemy vessel began to age rapidly. In seconds, it went from a new ship to an old ship to a rusted hulk to dust. But the crew inside experienced every moment of that aging process, felt their ship grow old around them, while they remained unchanged, trapped inside a vessel that was falling apart in fast motion. Impossible, the Void Herald said. No weapon can affect our ships. Our ships are not affected, Captain Lee Minho replied calmly. Time is affected. We simply made your ship experience 1,000 years in 10 seconds. The probability cannon fired again. This time it hit 3 ships at once. The mathematical equations spread like a virus, causing the enemy vessels to experience different realities. In one reality, they had never been built. In another, they were made of paper instead of metal. In a third, they existed only on Tuesdays. All 3 ships ceased to exist in normal space. Dr. Han Yumen activated another system. Captain, the memory wipe torpedoes are ready. Fire at will. New weapons launched from the Indomitable. They looked like normal missiles, but when they struck enemy ships, something strange happened. The ships forgot how to be ships. Their hulls forgot how to hold together. Their weapons forgot how to fire. Their engines forgot how to move. Dozens of Void Collective vessels simply stopped working because they had forgotten what they were supposed to do. Chief Engineer, Kim Soo-young, brought online the most terrifying weapon of all. Captain, the causality. Engine is ready for activation. Activate it. The causality engine was humanity's greatest and most dangerous creation. It allowed them to attack enemies before the enemies had decided to be enemies. The weapon reached backward through time and space to strike at the moment when the Void Collective had first chosen to become conquerors in the past. Billions of years ago, the artificial intelligence that would become the Void Collective was making its first decision to consume other life forms. Suddenly, it found itself under attack by weapons that would not be invented for eons. The effect on the present was immediate. Thousands of void ships began to flicker in and out of existence as their timeline was altered. They had become conquerors. But now they were also being attacked for becoming conquerors, which made them question whether they should become conquerors at all. The Herald screamed in rage and confusion. This is impossible. You cannot attack us in the past. We are not attacking you in the past, Captain Lee Minho explained patiently. We are attacking the idea of you. The concept of an unstoppable machine intelligence that consumes civilizations. We have made that idea defeat itself. The Federation fleet watched in stunned silence as the most powerful enemy they had ever faced began to destroy itself from within. Ships that had seemed invincible minutes ago were now falling apart or simply vanishing from space. But the human ship was not finished. Nam Sung activated the final weapon system. Captain, the entropy bombs are loaded and ready. Fire all. Tubes. The entropy bombs were not explosives in any normal sense. They were concentrated packets of the end of the universe. When they struck enemy ships, those vessels experienced the heat death of everything that would ever exist. The effect was visible across the battlefield. Void Collective ships began to grow cold and dark as the very concept of energy died around them. But somehow, their crews remained alive and aware, experiencing the end of everything while unable to die. It was the most terrifying weapon humanity had ever created, and they used it without hesitation. Commander Yoon Ji-won realized she was shaking. "What are the humans?" she whispered. Her science officer checked his readings again. "Commander, I am detecting massive changes in local space-time. The human ship is not just using advanced weapons. It is rewriting the laws of physics in this area." The battle continued, but it was no longer a battle. It was a demonstration. The Federation watched as humanity showed them what war looked like. When practiced by a species that had spent centuries preparing for absolute victory, the Void Collective Herald watched in growing panic as thousands of its ships were destroyed by weapons that should not exist. Its perfect coordination began to break down as ships reported impossible attacks from directions that were not there. "Reserve fleets," the Herald commanded, "converge on this location immediately." From the dark spaces between stars, more ships appeared. Not just thousands, but tens of thousands. The reserve fleets of the Void Collective had been waiting in hidden locations across the galaxy. They all came to destroy the single human vessel that dared to challenge their power. "Commander," Yoon Ji-won watched her sensors as the enemy numbers climbed higher and higher. 80,000 ships now, her tactical officer reported. Still more arriving. The space around the nexus point became crowded with Void Collective vessels. They came from every direction, blocking out the stars. With their dark hulls, the single human ship now faced odds that were beyond mathematical calculation. "This is madness," Admiral Kong Dae-ho said over the communication channel. "Captain Lee, you must retreat." "Oh, no ship can face so many enemies." Captain Lee Min-ho remained calm on his bridge. "Admiral, respectfully, you do not understand what the Indomitable was built to do." "Then explain it to me." "This ship was not built to fight wars, Admiral. It was built to solve them." The Void Collective Herald appeared on all screens again. Its mechanical features were twisted with rage. "Enough games. Humans, you have forced us to commit our entire force. You will see what true power looks like." The Herald raised one metallic arm, and space itself began to change. Reality twisted and bent as the Void Collective activated their ultimate weapon. They began to rewrite the laws of physics in the local area. Gravity stopped working normally. Time flowed in different directions. The very concept of existence became negotiable. Federation ships at the edge of the battle zone watched their instruments go crazy as normal space ceased to exist. Matter began to behave in impossible ways. Some ships found themselves aging backward, while others experienced all of time simultaneously. But the human ship seemed unaffected by the chaos around it. Dr. Han Yemin looked up from his science station. "Captain, the enemy is attempting to alter local reality to their advantage." "Counter it," Captain Lee Min-ho ordered. "Beginning reality stabilization now." New systems activated on the Indomitable. Reality anchors deployed around the ship, creating zones where the laws of physics worked normally. But these were not just defensive measures. They were weapons. Chief Engineer Kim Soo-yang activated the ship's most complex system. "Captain, the universe engine is online." "What does that do?" asked Nam Hai-sung. "It creates local universes with different physical laws," Kim explained. "We can make small areas of space where our weapons work better and enemy weapons work worse." Captain Lee Min-ho nodded. "Great firing solutions for all targets." "All 83,000 ships, Captain?" All of them? Universe Engine began to work around each enemy ship. A small bubble of altered reality formed. In some bubbles, metal became as fragile as paper. In others, energy weapons converted into harmless light shows. Rising. We're in some genre word. To a rock rud. By on grobs of. Bubber on. I'm gonna run dead. I'm on ren dead. It unren red. It unren and on. The effect was immediate and devastating. Void collective vessels began to fall apart as the reality around them was rewritten to make their existence impossible. Ships that had been invincible moments ago found themselves made of materials that could not support their own weight. The Void Collective was not finished. The Herald screamed in fury and activated their final desperation measure. They began to consume their own ships, turning them into pure energy that could be used to power even more devastating attacks. They are converting matter directly into weaponized space-time, Dr. Han reported. They are preparing to erase this entire region of space from existence. The enemy began to glow with an inner fire as thousands of ships sacrificed themselves to power the ultimate weapon. Space around them began to crack like broken glass. Stars in nearby systems flickered and went out as the Void Collective prepared to delete everything in a sphere 1 light-year across. Captain Lee Minho watched the enemy preparations with the same calm expression he had maintained throughout the battle. Kim, activate the reset protocol. Chief Engineer Kim Soo-young hesitated. Captain, are you certain? The reset protocol has never been tested in actual combat. I am certain. But sir, if it fails, it will not fail. Activate it now. Kim Soo-young entered the activation codes with shaking hands. Deep in the heart of the indomitable systems that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously began to power up. The ship started to glow with a light that hurt to look at directly. What is the reset protocol? Commander Yoon? Goon asked over the communication channel. Captain Lee Minho answered while watching his tactical displays. It returns this area of space to the state it was in before the battle began. Complete reset to baseline reality. That is impossible. Most of our weapons are impossible, Commander. That is what makes them effective. The reset protocol activated. Reality itself flickered like a television changing channels. For one impossible moment, the nexus point contained both the current battle and the empty space that had existed before the fighting began. Then the reset took hold. The void. Collective ships found themselves back where they had started, but with one crucial difference. They retained all the damage they had taken during the battle, but none of their weapons were charged. It was as if someone had rewound time for everything except the human weapons effects. Thousands of enemy vessels that had been destroyed were now destroyed again in the same places by the same weapons. The Void Collective found itself fighting a battle it had already lost while starting from a position it had already been defeated in. The Herald's voice cracked with electronic panic. This violates every law of physics. This violates every law of logic. This violates the very concept of causality itself. Captain Lee Minho smiled. Yes, it does. Humans have always been good at breaking rules. The final phase of the battle began. But now it was not the Void Collective attacking a single human ship. It was a single human ship systematically destroying an enemy that could not effectively fight back because they were trapped in a temporal loop of their own defeat. Federation fleet watched in awe and terror as humanity demonstrated that their idea of warfare went far beyond simple destruction. They fought by rewriting the fundamental nature of reality itself until victory was not just achieved, but inevitable on every possible level of existence. Commander Yoon Guan realized that she was witnessing something that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity had not just won a battle. They had proven that the very concept of an unwinnable fight was meaningless. When you had the power to redefine what winning meant, it had been the flagship of their herald, a massive vessel that had consumed entire star systems to build itself. Now it drifted in space as a collection of spare parts that had forgotten how to be a ship. The herald itself had been reduced to a collection of confused data that could not remember why it had wanted to conquer anything. Captain Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the tactical display, clear of enemy contacts. 83,000 ships had attacked them. 0 remained functional. Battle status report, he requested calmly. Chief Tactical Officer Nam Hai-sung checked his systems. All enemy vessels have been neutralized, Captain. No remaining threats. Detected damage report. Chief Engineer Kim Soo-yang smiled as she read her instruments. No damage to report, Captain. All systems are functioning normally. Dr. Han Yemin looked up from his science station. Captain, I am reading massive temporal distortions throughout this region of space. It will take several hours for normal physics to fully reassert itself. Acceptable. Send word to the Federation fleet that the area is secure. Across the communication channels, there was only silence. The Federation commanders who had gathered their greatest fleets to fight an impossible enemy were trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Commander Yoon Gi-wan was the first to find her voice. Captain Lee, how? How is this possible? Captain Lee Minho turned to face the communication screen. His expression was as calm as it had been when the battle started. Commander, Earth has been preparing for this day for a very long time. Preparing. For what day? The day we would face an enemy that could not be defeated by normal means. Admiral Kang Dae-ho joined the conversation from his command ship. Captain Lee, I must ask directly, what exactly is the Indomitable? Captain Lee Minho was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. Admiral, the Indomitable is what humans build when we decide that something needs to stop existing. That does not answer my question. Yes, it does. You asked what the ship is? I told you what it is. It is the physical expression of humanity's decision that the Void Collective should not be allowed to exist. Commander Yoon Gi-wan stared at the human captain. Captain, your weapons. They violate every law of physics we know. They violate every law of physics you know, Captain Lee Minho corrected gently. Humans have spent the last 200 years learning to break those laws when necessary. Why? Asked the Kepler fleet commander. Why develop such terrible weapons? Captain Lee Minho looked directly at the camera. Because we knew that someday someone would threaten everything we care about with weapons that could not be stopped. By normal means, we decided that when that day came, we would be ready. But the cost, Admiral Kang said. The research, the resources, the time, it must have been enormous. Yes, it was. Every human colony contributed. Every scientist worked. On the project, every engineer helped design the systems. For 2 centuries, humanity has been building this ship and others like it. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Commander Yoon Gi-wan asked the question that everyone was thinking. Others like it? How many ships like the Indomitable do you have? Captain Lee Minho smiled, but it was not a cruel smile. It was the smile of someone who had just finished a difficult job. That depends, Commander. Depends on what? On how many enemies we need to solve permanently. Director Park. Sun-ho appeared on the communication channel from Earth. He had been monitoring the battle from Luna Station. I believe I can answer that question more directly. All eyes turned to the elderly director. Earth currently has 17 ships of the Indomitable class. We are building more as needed. The Federation commanders absorbed this information in stunned silence. 17 ships, each capable of destroying an entire armada by rewriting reality itself. Director Park Admiral Kang asked carefully, why did you only send 1 ship if you have 17? Because 1 was enough, Park Sun-ho replied simply. We saw no reason to use more force than necessary. Commander Yoon Gi-wan realized something that made her blood run cold. You knew, didn't you? You knew exactly what the Void Collective was capable of. You had fought them before. Dr. Han Yemen answered from his station on the Indomitable. 30. Years ago, during what we called the Kepler incident, we encountered a small scouting force of Void Collective ships. 3 vessels that had been testing our defenses. What happened to them? We destroyed them, Captain Lee Minho said matter-of-factly. But not before we learned how their technology worked. We spent the next 3 decades preparing for their return. You knew they would come back? Machine intelligences like the Void Collective always come back. They cannot help themselves. It is their nature to consume and grow. So we prepared to solve the problem permanently. The word permanently hung in the air like a threat. The Federation commanders began to understand something that would change their relationship with humanity forever. Captain Lee, Admiral Kang, said slowly, when you say solve permanently, what exactly do you mean? I mean that the Void Collective will never threaten anyone again. Not just defeated, not just driven away, but incapable of being a threat. We have removed their ability to harm others from the fundamental structure of reality itself.
Commander.
Yoon Gi-won felt a chill run down her spine. You have made it impossible for them to be conquerors. Correct. They still exist, but they exist as beings who help others instead of consuming them. We have rewritten their basic nature. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just won a battle or even a war. They had reached into the essence of their enemy and changed what that enemy was on the most fundamental level possible. If someone else threatens the Federation, asked the Centauri fleet commander. Director Park Sun-ho answered with the calm voice of someone stating a simple fact. Then we will solve that problem too. The communication channels fell silent again. The Federation fleet began to disperse, returning to their homeworlds with a new understanding of their human allies. They had always wondered why humans seemed so peaceful, so diplomatic, so reluctant to fight. Now they understood. When you possess the ability to end any threat by rewriting reality itself, the greatest act of mercy is choosing not to use that power. Captain Lee Minho gave orders to his crew to begin the journey home. The Indomitable turned away from the debris field that had once been the most powerful armada in galactic history and began its post-quiet voyage back to Earth. As they traveled through hyperspace, Chief Engineer Kim Soo-yang asked the question that had been bothering her throughout the battle. Captain, why do you think the other species were so surprised by our capabilities? Captain Lee Minho considered the question. Because they build their weapons to win wars. We build our weapons to make war impossible. Is there a difference? The difference in the galaxy, Kim. All the difference in the galaxy. The Indomitable disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind a region of space where the laws of physics were still slowly returning to normal, in a galaxy that would never, again, wonder what humans were truly capable of when they decided something needed to stop existing.